You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast, presented to you by Game Time and Prize Picks. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is game week. And I'm not talking about number one UAB versus number two TCU in a Big 12 matchup. That's not what we're talking about. It's not an NCAA 25. It's a real-life football game. The New England Patriots playing the Carolina Panthers. And because it is, of course, it's your boy Pat Lane with my guy Matt St. Jean. But we had to bring on a special guest today, our first TikTok creator guest, which we're kind of excited about. You know, boomers don't turn it off just yet, okay? He's a good guy. We like him a lot. It's Anthony Lawson, Esquire. Anthony, how we doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. You know, normally when I listen to this podcast, I'm one of those people who puts it into 2x speed. I really got to enjoy the intro this time. You know, the music, I got to jam out for a little bit longer than normal. It was nice.
Yep. There you go.
Do our voices sound slow and deep now?
Yes, but when I'm speaking back, as opposed to just listening, you know, I can really get in the moment and it doesn't feel quite so slow. So
it's very true. It's so funny listening to the podcast. Like I listen on almost 2x speed as well. And like they like sound drunk when I'm listening to it. I'm like, wait, why do they sound so weird, dude? But you know, that's the way it goes. So it is draft week. Jesus Christ. It is game week finally for the first time. Been a long time since we could say that. Patriots hosting the Carolina Panthers on Thursday night. And, you know, I don't know how I feel about the game. I mean, yeah, sure. I'm excited about it. I'm a little nervous about what we're going to see. We're going to get into kind of all the things, but it is so nice for football to be back, and especially to be back in Gillette Stadium. Just to like see them there again. And of course, it's a totally different team, different coach, different everything almost. But it's going to be great to see them kind of run out of that tunnel once again. So it would be nice.
This is going to be the first time the Patriots take the field at Gillette Stadium without Bill Belichick or Tom Brady there.
That's correct.
Which is crazy now that I'm realizing that. Totally new world now. Right.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that this is the first time in the new millennium that they've taken the field without Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick took over as coach in 2000, although I'm sure they played a game in January of 2000 in the 1999 season with Pete Carroll as head coach, but nevertheless.
Well, if you want to get really tactical with it, the new millennium didn't start until 2001 anyway. So.
Well, look at that. See, you're right. Look at that. Great point. That's a great point. So you're right, because the year 0 wasn't a year. It would be the year 1, right? Into the year 2001. Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm with you. I hear that. All right. So, yeah, I mean, look, Carolina's coming into town. I don't know where we want to start. If we want to start with Carolina, if we want to start with the Patriots and kind of what we're looking at, if we want to start with what we've kind of seen the last few days from practice. I know, Anthony, we met up at a practice last week, I think, at one of these dates last week. I think it was last Monday. We were
Monday,
there.
Yes.
And so I was actually there today as well. But, you know, it's kind of they've gone back and forth about and it's been very up and down, I feel like. And Matt, we were talking about this before, like before we got on. It's been very up and down. I've been really worried about like what we're going to see. And Caden Wallace is doing well at left tackle for a while. And now Fedarian Lowe's at left tackle. And I'm like, what's going on? And then Okorafor now is banged up. And now they got 2 guys on IR because, as you pointed out, Tyrone Wheatley was injured, was released with an injury designation, now reverts back to IR because no one claimed him. They just put Jake Andrews on IR. So now it's like the middle of the offensive line doesn't have a ton of depth. So there's a whole bunch of things going on. We're going to talk about a bunch of them. But practice was physical today, really physical, which I thought was really cool. I was happy about that. There was some tackling. There was a lot of tackling to the ground. And the players are getting a little chippy with each other, which I like to see.
Yeah, I kind of want to go back to that practice last week. 'Cause Pat, we've heard all your thoughts about it, but Anthony, I want to get your impressions on seeing the team last week, and then we can kind of use that as a baseline for what's happened. I feel like a lot has happened in the week since then.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. I don't want to date myself too much here, but, you know, the last time that the Patriots, you know, played a game without Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, I was not conscious. I was, less than a year old, I think. So when it comes to seeing things like these training camps, I don't exactly have the biggest glossary, index, whatever in my mind of what this is supposed to look like, what it should look like. Prior to this year and this training camp that I attended on Monday, I had attended 3 Pats camps before. So I was just excited to see, what it looked like this year compared to what it looked like under Belichick. And there were only so many things I could gather, but I did like what I saw for the most part, even though it was not the cleanest practice. It was the first full Pats one, I believe, that Monday. It's out nice. Judon, has he thrown with the fans since that Monday? For all we know, I might have seen the last.
No, I don't think he has. I don't think he has. By the way, he did throw me a pass that day.
I heard you say that on the pod 1 or 2 episodes ago. Yeah, I didn't even realize that.
Were you the last fan to catch a pass?
I was not, because he started on my side, so I was actually the first. I was the first fan of the day to catch one from him that day. So, but no, it hasn't gone well since. I think he's just kind of like, no, screw this. I'm putting my head down, working, doing my job, coming in and coming out, and that's it.
Yeah, that's still a flex to have caught one. That Monday, though, one of the things I noticed, and I know this is a small, minor detail, but even just the things like the Joe Milton backflip, things like that, I could feel like that vibe shift just a tad from the past seasons. I had fun watching May, Brissett, and Milton throwing into the net, all of that. And then when it got to the 11-on-11 stuff, one of the things that stuck out to me the most, it was only 2 plays from an overall messy period, but Thornton making a deep catch and Baker making a deep catch as well. I was talking to you after the practice, Pat, and I was saying I really like the point you made that Thornton, for as much as he struggled in seasons prior to this, even just with health, but also with making an impact on the field, his skill set is not something that previous Pats quarterbacks, Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, have been able to utilize. A fast downfield receiver, that's not exactly something that their arms could capitalize on. But this season, even just with Brissett, but also obviously with May and his arm, that's something that could be put to use. And I know he's had some issues since that Monday practice, but that was one of the things that I walked away from that practice, feeling the most excited about, because explosive plays, that was not a thing last year, not at all.
Oh, and even you go back to the Cam Newton year, he had 1 or 2 connections to Demir Bird deep, and Julian Edelman early in that season before that knee broke down.
Never forget that Seahawks game.
That game. I thought the Patriots were going to be so back, and we were just going to keep rolling and win that one, and obviously not how that happened. But we haven't seen a quarterback who can complete deep passes with any regularity in New England since Brady left. So somebody who can do that, and I think if you watch, Tyquan Thornton has struggled, but if you watch the tape, there are spots where he gets open deep. Like that was when he first came into the league, his first couple games his rookie year, especially against the Lions. That Lions defense was atrocious, but he did get open at points, and it's like the quarterback's never looking for him. Part of that's a consistency thing. He's not going to trust that he's open, but also Mac Jones was never looking for that play, or was it Bailey? That was Bailey Zappi in that game.
Zappi.
That was when Mac Jones got hurt. Bailey Zappi's not looking for that play. He's, point guard, getting it out underneath for the most part. So if they have a quarterback who can utilize that, like you said, that's huge.
Yeah, no, it's true, and that's one of the interesting things about Tyquan. And when you start looking at the wide receivers, and we'll kind of talk about what we're looking for, what we're looking forward to in the preseason game. The bottom of that, because we already know what the top's going to be, right? Baker's on the team, Pop's on the team, Polk's on the team, Kendrick Bourne's on the team. We know those 4 are on the team, no matter what, right? Now, whether Kendrick Bourne starts the year on the PUP list or not, right? He's on the PUP list still. Will he come off before that initial 53-man roster? We don't know, right? So that might open up another spot on the roster. But we know those 4 guys are on the squad. So now you say, okay, there's 2, maybe 3 more guys that can make it. Is it going to be Booty? Is it going to be Tyquan? Is it going to be Juju? Probably not. Is it going to be Rager? We don't know, right? It's going to be David Wallace. Highly doubtful, but you never know, right? And so you start to run down the list. It's going to be KJ Osborne, right? Who I called KJ Hamler today. I swear, draft. Like, honestly, KJ Hamler is got drafted 4 years ago, and he's still in my head for, I was like, oh, this guy would be great for the Patriots.
He's in Buffalo now, I think.
I think he is. Yeah, he got drafted by Denver, did nothing. Never did a thing in Denver. And I think you're right. He's in Buffalo. But
That
anyways,
Buffalo wide receiver depth chart right now is a who's who of random wide receivers too.
yeah.
That's
Quote Taylor Swift, a who's who of who's that.
Yes.
So it's one of those things that you don't know what's going to look like, right? So those top four, and then it's like, all right, well, Osborne and Mike Reese seems to think that Osborne's on the roster. So okay, say Osborne's on the roster. There's 5. Okay, well then there's 1 or 2 more guys left, and then is that guy going to be Booty? I like Booty quite a bit. He's played well, but him and Javon Baker and Jalen Polk seem like they're kind of similar players, and so like you have a guy like Taekwon that can do something that no one else on the team can really do. With the speed that he has, that might be valuable if that's what they want to do. And they may say, nah, we want bigger guys and we're not going to take the top of the defense a ton. But, it's an interesting thing to kind of look at and see what they want.
Well, I know in Cleveland too, that scheme with Alex Van Pelt that they ran there does have a lot of play action shot plays. So if you want to run a lot of that stuff, having speed guys, or I mean, even like Javon Baker isn't the fastest, but he also doesn't necessarily need to get open by a ton down the field because he can make acrobatic catches. And Jalen Polk is very much the same way. I think you got a variety of different types of receivers you can put out there when it's, we're going to go under center, hard play action and try to stretch something down the field a little bit. But yeah, we were talking about that practice that you guys were at, though. A lot has changed in some of the offensive line.
Yes.
It's hard to keep track of.
Yeah, I'm keeping my own depth chart over here based on practice reports, and every day I'm changing the offensive line because the tackles are changing. It seems like every day.
I believe at that practice, Nick Leverett was the center and David Andrews was not, I believe, unless I have my days mixed up.
Yeah, because I think, over the weekend is when whatever it was happened with his kid and he was in the hospital.
Right. So I think he
Monday,
missed that
Tuesday.
Monday, Tuesday, and then they had Wednesday off and he was back on Thursday, I believe. And so,
he's a full participant now too.
He is, yeah, and everything was fine with Andrews, right? It was just his baby, right, was not doing well, and now is, which is good. But even that it has changed. So now you look at it and say, okay, well, what the heck? What are we doing here, right? Who's going to be the left tackle and right tackle? We have no idea, and that's something that still has to be answered. And unfortunately, with a core 4 going down with an injury, it makes things a little bit more difficult. Maybe they want to rotate guys more. I don't know. Maybe they feel like a core 4 is the guy at left tackle, and Caden Wallace couldn't get it done. And now they're trying to figure out who's going to be at right tackle. But I still haven't seen Caden Wallace at the top at right tackle depth, which doesn't make sense to me, if that's how you actually felt. So I don't really know what they're doing with the rotations. It doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. Maybe it will, I guess. But they have like 3 more, at least to the viewing public. They have like 3 or 4 more practices before training camp's over. So like at a certain point, you just kind of have to figure it out at some point. So I'd like them to have more of an idea of what's going on. At least we don't, and maybe they do. Maybe they're like, oh, we're good. I'd like Caden Wallace left tackle. We're going to leave him there. We're going to give Adarian low snaps because maybe we can. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense. So that's the thing. I'm not sure what they're doing, and if they know, they're certainly not letting us know.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster, but it's not an exciting one. It's a roller coaster that's for like 8-year-olds or something. It's got highs and lows, but they're not super high. I mean, maybe the lows are kind of low. But as I followed it over the course of the week and so, I've heard Caden Wallace talking about the Scott Peters strike system, and all of a sudden I'm getting very excited. And I'm listening to Taylor Kiles talk about that strike system. And he discusses how, maybe it's not the best offensive line coaching situation in the entire league, but it might be the best one for the Patriots working with the talent that they have. It sounds like something that can kind of raise your floor as an offense and just keep things steady. And so here I am sitting going, oh, that sounds great. But since then, Caden Wallace, he's seeing less snaps and it's Vidarian Low. And suddenly I don't know what to feel anymore. And that roller coaster goes back down to the bottom. And I just don't really know where it's going to end. And it's hard. It's hard to know what's going on. And we only have 3 days until the game.
Yeah.
Right.
When I think when it you come out of the draft and you're thinking, okay, especially since we didn't know the extent of Cole Strange's injury at that point, you're thinking Cole Strange is going to be back. David Andrews is going to be in. Sidiso is going to be in. And then Michael Onwenu is going to be your right tackle. And you got 4 spots short up. And then you've got Okorafor and you've got Wallace and Lowe and Anderson all fighting for the left tackle job. And now here we are, and Onwenu's at guard. And Okorafor is hurt at the moment. We obviously have no idea the severity of that. And so you're essentially down 2 pieces on the depth chart. And you add the Cole Strange injury. And like, all right, we're just like immediately hitting the reserves of offensive tackle before we've played any kind of even not meaningful football, which feels like where we were in camp last year. Like, it's frustrating to have, to a degree, a repeat where you have key pieces getting hurt again, and that's causing issues. That said, the interior has been solid. Like, you have a good top 4 there. Sidiso seems locked in. Like, somebody said that he was the second best offensive player in camp, which is a good sign, I think, for his development. Michael Wayne is a very good guard. Andrews is solid at center. It sounds like Nick Leverett has been really good as a backup too. So like, you feel good about the guys there, and then you look at tackle and it is painful.
Yeah.
I think like right now we're putting our hopes in either Vidarian Lowe taking a significant step up in his performance from last year, or a rookie probably playing left tackle based on what they have been telling us the last couple days. I will say, every time that we have come on here and talked about offensive line combinations, it's different the next day. Every time we talk about it, like, okay, this is the one they're settling into, and it changes right away. So we're going to think about tomorrow, and they're going to have Calvin Anderson at left tackle or something.
Right.
But if Okorafor is hurt, I think you're going to see all 3 of the guys that are up for tackle jobs get a ton of playing time on Thursday. And that'll be a good first step towards solidifying yourself in one of those 2 spots.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not sure what it's going to look like, but we'll see what happens. All right. While we're here, right, we're on this Thursday. Let's talk about what we're looking for in the draft. So we each pick 3 things that we're looking for.
Keep saying the draft.
I keep saying the draft. I don't believe it's real. I don't believe it. I'm in denial that it's real. And you know why? Because the summer, that means the summer's ending, and I don't want the summer to end. So, all right. So we're looking for 3 things in the game. I almost did it again. I caught myself though. Anthony, why don't you start us off with the first one you're looking for?
Yeah, so the first thing that I'm looking for in this game, I put it down as 3rd and long situations. JT O'Sullivan, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with him. He is the quarterback school on YouTube. He's a former quarterback in the NFL. He famously refers to 3rd and long situations as Star Wars time. And I love that term. And what he means by that is, I'm sure you can picture, these scenes happened all the time in Star Wars, but be it stormtroopers, droids, whatever, they're shooting at the protagonists, and lasers are just flying everywhere, all directions, all at once. They might not hit you, but they're everywhere, and it's very chaotic. That's kind of what it's like to play a 3rd and long in the NFL. You're going to be pressured. You don't know where from. Defenders are going to be flying all around. And the worst thing is that the defenders, they know what you're going to do. You're going to pass because it's 3rd and long. And the Patriots, this camp so far, they've been pretty clear about the fact that they will be a run-first team this season. That's going to be their thing. It kind of reminds me of the Houston Texans last year. It was very much a run-pass thing. And on those 3rd downs, when they did pass, it worked because they had C.J. Stroud at quarterback. If Drake May starts games this year, optimistically, it would be the same sort of thing. It's kind of out of his hands on 1st and 2nd down. The Cleveland Browns-esque, we're going to pound the rock. But then on 3rd down, that's where your quarterback can bail you out or make a great play. And that's something May is capable of. So in this game on Thursday, that's what I'm excited to see, be it May or Brissett or whomever. 3rd and long is when I kind of imagine we're going to see the most entertaining, most revealing plays from these quarterbacks. Another thing with May, I know that in a lot of the practices so far, he hasn't been able to scramble to his fullest potential, and that's something that we know he's very capable of. I heard today that he had a nice scramble touchdown in the red zone. We know that he's very, very capable of it, and in a game against another team that doesn't know him as well as this Patriots defense does to this point, he can put some highlights on the tape. I think it's very possible, and I think it's the most possible in those situations. So that's something I am very excited for.
It's a great point. Yeah, it's a great point. And I know you can't hit May right now, but that wasn't a case where he shook someone because there was just no one there and he just took off. And so I'm in agreement with you on that one.
Well, that's something going back to the draft, and we were talking about that earlier in the cycle. This is an under-discussed thing with Drake May, is that he can punish man coverage, because if the defenders all turn their backs, then he can just take off with the ball and run and move the chains that way, get touchdowns, whatever. We'll get the first look at that, and that could be, talk about third and long stuff. If they're going to play man coverage, I wouldn't be surprised if it's, the first third down of the game where Drake May's out there and he just picks it up with his legs.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, and one other thing, I was looking back at the Patriots-Texans game from last year, and you guys probably remember C.J. Stroud, one of the first third and longs of his season. What did he do? He threw a pick. And Stroud obviously got to the regular season and then proceeded to not throw a pick for a historic amount of time, which, I mean, in one sense, that goes to show how much preseason means. But the other angle is that this provides learning experiences for these quarterbacks. They might try stuff in these preseason games that maybe they won't by the time the season starts. And maybe that's thanks to what they learned in the preseason. So I'm very excited for that. That's going to be something I definitely have my eye on.
See, I'm going for the thing I'm looking for first is what's going to keep us out of those situations, and that is the first and second down run game. So like you said, that's going to be the bread and butter of this offense, at least year one, and it's going to be so important to this team winning for a lot of reasons. I think they want to play old school football and control the clock. It's important for developing your young quarterback by keeping him in situations where he's not behind the chains. It's important for your defense because even if you can't move the chains with regularity, if you could run the ball well enough to pick up a couple of first downs, that way when you punt, you can force worse field position. That helps out your defense and gives you, more opportunities to stay in a game that you're having a tough time with. And we talked after the first padded practice, the running game looked really, really good, and I was optimistic. Since then, it hasn't looked as good. They said today there was like a 50% stuff rate, I think 16 carries, and 8 of them didn't make it past the line of scrimmage.
It didn't look good.
You can't be doing that. Part of that's offensive line injuries, but you're going against there's a Carolina run defense that was awful last year. They were, I think, third. I have it in my notes here. I think 31st in EPA. They were 32nd in EPA per play allowed on the ground last year. Really bad. So there should be opportunity. They did beef up the run defense a little bit, but there should be opportunities to run the ball with success. And if they come out and it looks like it did in the preseason 2 years ago, but they can't do anything on the ground, that's going to be a massive, massive red flag for what this is going to look like in the regular season.
Yeah.
It'll also add some nice perspective. If we do, in fact, move the ball on the ground, then we can look back at some of these camp moments and go, okay, maybe we can feel a bit better about the defensive line too, because it's so difficult to know how much is the offense, how much is the defense. I'm sure you guys know that because, these are Bill Belichick defenses we've been talking about for the past 2 decades. It's not easy to get things against these units in the offseason. So if they come out there and look good against the Panthers, that just gives us a lot of optimism that it's kind of hard to gauge how much we should have right now.
Right. And so the first thing I'm looking at relates to what you just said, Matt. And I would say that more so than just the run game, I'm specifically looking at the top tackles. And Tony Starks says on here that, it was the O-line injuries from what we heard today at practice. And I would disagree with that only because Chuks Okorafor is the only guy that was really out today. Obviously, there have been a few other guys that have gone down, but those have been depth guys. And so out of the starting lineup, it's just been Okorafor. And, whether Caden Wallace got benched, basically down to the second unit, or whether they're just giving Vidarian Lowe some extra look at left tackle, I don't know. But I'm really interested to see, A, who plays, right? And then B, how they play, right? Is Vidarian Lowe going to be your starting left tackle? And if he is, on Thursday night, how does he play? Does he play well? And do we look at it and say, he was a little bit of a developmental piece. Maybe they think he's getting a little bit better. Or maybe he can play left tackle for this team. I don't know. And so, and again, it's preseason. We're not going to make any necessarily judgment based off of what happens in the preseason. But it is something that I think is worth watching. And, Calvin Anderson, who we really haven't seen in live game action. Of course, he came back a little bit last year, but after malaria wasn't 100%, obviously. And so what does that look like when he's out there? And obviously, Caden Wallace is the big question mark too. Is he going to start? Is he not going to start? Doesn't seem like we're going to see Okorafor. Obviously, he's been out the last few days, and so hopefully he can come back, and then we'll see what happens from there. But those top tackles I'm really interested in, obviously in the run game, but also in the pass game as well.
Well, they have Caden Wallace playing left and right tackle with different groups in practice at this point with the injury, so he'll get a ton of run on Thursday.
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's rare for the stakes to be so high for so many members of a starting offense, but that's definitely the case for the Pats.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like a very fine line between starting at tackle and being off of a roster right now.
Absolutely.
So, which is obviously a little bit worrying. But yeah, these guys are fighting for jobs too, because if you're the fourth tackle right now, you might not make this roster.
It's a great point. So, all right, Anthony, let's hear your second one.
Yeah, the number 2 thing that I'm going to be looking for in these games is the tight end utilization. And it's kind of difficult to talk about because I don't know for sure which tight ends we'll be seeing, specifically Hunter Henry. I'm not sure if you guys have any knowledge of whether or not he'll see snaps in this.
Yeah. Haven't heard yet. We'll see.
Yeah, but I'm interested in what happens here because, the best example I can give is the Browns, where Alex Van Pelt came from. We know this is a run-first team, and we know that generally, when we're talking run-first teams in the NFL, the tight end tends to play a big part in the pass game. There's simple examples of that with just, play action. You block, you leak out, the tight end gets the looks that way. But there's also just the personnel specific situation for the Patriots, where Hunter Henry, he's been one of the most reliable common denominators that this offense has had for the past couple of years. I saw a clip the other day out of camp of Jacoby Brissett. He turned to, I think it was another quarterback. It could have been a coach, but he just said, man, I really love having good tight ends. And it's true. I don't blame him for saying that. These are good players. I know Hunter Henry's been making a lot of plays in camp, and it's just something I'm excited to see in the game. How much do we lean on these tight ends in what's probably going to be a run-heavy attack, but in a scheme where they can probably make the big plays in the red zone and on some of these long downs and distances?
Yeah. I just want to add on to that too, Jaheim Bell, who just came back to practice today. He's a guy who is not, I don't think, going to factor at all into the run blocking part of it, but he's a guy who you can use in the passing game. I want to see how they use him too. Like he's totally different than the other tight ends that they have on this roster. And I don't really know we haven't seen him in practice. We have no idea what their vision is for him.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I actually tweeted out today at the beginning of practice that I wish Jaheim Bell were healthy. Of course, he came back today, but he wasn't really on the field. He did drills and stuff, but he wasn't really on the field. I never noticed him in team. He's, the 5th tight end on the depth chart right now. And it just feels like if he were actually healthy, he'd be far from the 5th tight end on the depth chart. You'd think he'd probably be 3rd. And I guess maybe
Bill Coxley should be fighting, I think, for
spot. And so that's kind of where I feel like, and maybe he's even 6th because they might have 3 guys ahead of him. They might have, 5 guys ahead of him. So either way, but I feel like he'd be a lot higher on the depth chart than he is now if he could actually get and stay healthy. So we'll see. We'll see if that comes to bear in the next few weeks here.
Yeah. I'm going to go over to the other side of the ball from mine here, going over to the defense. And I'm looking at the fact that Christian Barmore is out indefinitely, and I have serious doubt about if he's going to be back this season. So I'm looking at the guys who are going to have an opportunity here to step up and replace him. Name at the top of that list is going to be Daniel Ekuale because he has done it before in New England. I'm going to look at Mike Purcell, too, who they just brought in. He's not going to factor into the pass rush as much, but he's a true nose tackle. So if he's really good in the nose tackle role, I think that's going to impact how they even handle this. We saw monster run stuffing looks in practice where they're just going to put Mike Purcell as your nose tackle and Devon Godshaw as another defensive tackle, and at defensive end you put another defensive tackle, you put Daniel Ekuale or somebody over there and just say, we're just going to stop the run, try to get by us. If they might try to just lean into that this year the way they did last year where they really shut down the run. Armand Watts is in this. Tristan Hill has gotten a lot of run in practice. Jeremiah Farms, who played both sides of the ball today, we're just throwing that out there. Sam Roberts and Bronson, who they just signed. That's the depth chart defensive tackle. These are the names. If anybody can have a moment in the preseason, especially against the Carolina team that just paid a ton of money for their starting guards and is trying to bolster that part of their roster, if you have a moment as a pass rusher, that could be huge for making the roster and huge for what this defense is going to look like in a month, 2 months.
I like it. I like it. It's a good one. All right. My second one is the second corner. And so without fail, Christian Gonzalez, rightfully so, has been working as the CB1 for the Patriots on the top defense. Jonathan Jones, for the most part, has been playing that slot corner role. Now, it's possible that when Marcus Jones comes back healthy, he was back in full pads today, but he wasn't really out there a ton with the defense, at least on 11 on 11s. It's possible that he ends up at that second corner, but they've been rotating that second corner. At times it was Alex Austin. At times it was Marco Wilson. At times it was even, I saw Azizi Hearn out there once. And so they've been rotating that second corner quite a bit. And so I really want to see if someone can kind of take that step to show like, hey, I deserve to be out here when we go with our top defensive unit. And so, again, Christian Gonzalez has looked just as good as he looked last year. He's just a complete lockdown. There was one play, Jaquay Jackson, I posted the clip. I think it was Alex Bartha taking a video of it. Jaquay Jackson threw like a triple move on him at the goal line. It was just like, no, not happening. So Gonzalez is just smooth and fluid with everything. And so, I feel good about him as the number one corner, but that number two corner spot is very, very much up for grabs. And again, maybe John Jones has to go out to the outside and then they bump someone else inside. But I think that they want to keep John Jones inside and have someone else be that second outside corner. So we'll see.
Well, this is where I think Sean Wade also taking off the non-contact jersey today could play into this, because he's the guy he's been up and down. He's had some good moments. He knows the system. He's a veteran at this point, and he might be able to give you steady play, even if he isn't corner 2, even if he's corner 4. Just having that depth, I think, would be nice. Yeah, having some certainty there.
Agreed. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll come back with our third thing we're going to look for, and we're going to be talking about a few other things as well. We'll be right back.
Nothing beats the sights and sounds at Fenway Park when the Sox take on the Yankees. From the smell of good Fenway Frank to the cheers of the crowd, there's no better way to spend a summer evening. And with Game Time, you can make sure you're there. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. The Red Sox return to Fenway from the All-Star break in a few weeks to host the Yankees and Mariners, and using the Game Time app, you can quickly find the best value tickets for any game by looking for the blue check mark on the map. And with all-in pricing, the price you see is the price you pay, no hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
All right, so we're back. All right, let's do our third thing we're looking for. Anthony, let's start us off again.
Yeah, so the third thing I'm looking for, it's kind of the simplest one in some ways, but I figured it was still worth mentioning. Jerod Mayo. What does he look like? I know this is something that, if it gets into the hands of national media, the wrong people in national media, sometimes picking apart what a coach does in their first preseason game, that can go poorly. That can be obnoxious, unnecessary, sensationalizing, like I said. But we're all Pats fans here. We want what's best for this team. And I think just watching Jerod Mayo and seeing what he looks like and taking those details, but not, overreacting to them, I think it will be cool. Like I said, I watched back that Texans-Patriots game from last preseason. And I will be honest, D'Amico Ryans, he didn't exactly pop off the screen. And that makes sense. It's preseason. He's not going to be beating his chest after a big third down stop in a game that means literally nothing. But still, I want to see even the smallest things that I can about Jerod Mayo, because maybe by the time regular season hits, we'll see a different Mayo, or maybe he'll be the same guy. And I think it'll be really interesting to compare, but I think it'll also be interesting just to see what are the general notes after his first game as a head coach.
I think that's a good one to look at, and I think you can also expand on it a little bit and just like the general team operation. We'll get to see what this looks like in the stadium environment without Bill for the first time. What do they change? What looks different? How's everybody interacting with the players? Because Mayo might not be very different here from how he was as defensive coordinator. It might just be, similar op, similar
Right.
things, or maybe he does change it up big time. I'm very fascinated to see that because we've had roughly the same ritual in Gillette Stadium before every game for 2 decades now, and it's gonna be a little bit different. I'm
Very true.
going over to special teams for my third one. So we have a kicker battle. We didn't get to see many field goals. We saw actually exactly 1 field goal last preseason and 2 extra points. So hopefully the offense gives the team a little bit more to work with this time around. We can actually see some attempted field goals. But Chad Ryland and Joey Sly going back and forth. I think Chad Ryland has the inside track right now. Joey Sly just had a big 50-plus yarder in practice, though. And I think if Chad Ryland can, put last year in the rearview mirror, he's got the talent to be a really good kicker. I'd love to see that for him to come out in the preseason, nail a couple kicks, make it look easy, build some confidence in a game environment, and we can go to a fresh page here for him. But you don't want to see both kickers go out there and miss kicks and feel like it doesn't matter who wins this kicker battle. Like you're scouting the waiver wire on cutdown day looking for a kicker. That is not where you want to be.
Yeah.
And then a new wrinkle in this too. Patriots just signed Tucker Addington, a long snapper who has been around the team for a while and had been on the team in 2022. So I think Joe Cardona is banged up. This means they're changing their kick operation a couple days before a game here, which I think is, this is good preparation for things that can happen in the regular season. Guys get hurt and you got to change things. So how do these kickers adjust to something that might be a little bit different out there?
Yeah, that's a good one. And listen, I had said from the beginning that I wanted them to keep Ryland and then have him compete with someone, and that's exactly what they're doing. And Ryland seems to be responding, to his credit. Now, who knows how he does in a game, because his problems have all been mental. And so, we'll see how he responds. I think it's a good one to be on the lookout for. So my last one is the young receivers. I shouldn't say the rookie receivers, the young receivers, obviously the 2 rookies, but also Kayshon Boutte as well. And I'll throw Tyquan Thornton into the mix there as well. Those guys have to make a name for themselves, right? Certainly. And again, Baker and Polk are on the team. Like, those guys aren't getting cut this year. But Kayshon Boutte could certainly get cut at the end of this camp. Tyquan Thornton could certainly get cut at the end of this camp. Those guys are fighting for their NFL lives right now. And so what can they do out there in week 1 of the preseason? Maybe they're doing with Drake May in the second unit. Maybe they don't get a lot of run with Jacoby Brissett in the first unit. But if they show that they can do enough with that second unit, maybe that propels them to the first unit. And so they're out there, on Thursday, on next Thursday against the Eagles, or even really in that joint practices with the Eagles. I think that's going to be even more important to than the game next week. I think will be those joint practices. So those young guys are really what I'm interested in. And again, the receiving core is a huge question mark. A lot of people think it's going to be one of the worst in the league, if not the absolute worst in the league. I don't necessarily feel that way, though I don't love it. But can those guys go out and make a name for themselves a little bit and make some plays, right? Get some juices flowing, because honestly, look, we can have guys that play well and do different things, but when a receiver makes a big-time play or a quarterback makes a big-time pass, there's so many more eyeballs on those types of plays, and it gets people excited more. And so whether that really makes your offense significantly better, no. No one really cares if your left tackle is a great left tackle, like is a good left tackle. Like, okay, if he's terrible, sure, but mediocre to good, whatever. But if, he pancakes someone, we don't care. But if Javon Baker makes a crazy, acrobatic, sprawling catch, on the sideline, we're going to be watching that on a loop for weeks. And so that's the type of thing that I want to see them go out there and do on Thursday.
Hey, while we're talking wide receivers, a report from NBC Sports Bay Area, published 4 minutes ago, says that both the Patriots and the Browns have a framework agreed to for a trade for Brandon Ayuk, and that it's the contract stuff that is what's being discussed. I don't know how reliable this is, but I'm just seeing it's NBC Sports Bay Area. So,
yeah, I mean, they got 150,000 followers.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's NBC Sports. It's not like a joke. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, That's
it does say the Patriots are expected to include former 49ers wide receiver Kendrick Bourne as part of the deal, which I think makes a ton of sense. Scheme fit for San Francisco, and Patriots have a lot of bodies at wide receiver, so getting rid of, and you can't trade Osborne. You're not going to trade a guy you just signed.
Right.
So
obviously, I don't love losing Kendrick Bourne, but if it's to get back Brandon Ayuk, I'd feel a lot better about it.
Well, and I think everybody's okay with that, because then Kendrick Bourne's going somewhere he can get a ring this year. You're not doing it.
Well, and that's the other part of it too. We're not sending Kendrick Bourne to the shadow realm either, right? So it would be good for him as well to go back to where he was. So I'd be happy with that, So we'll see. And by the way, and so Jack asked about the contract in the comments here. I think it's going to have to be crazy, huge numbers. And I would say approaching $30 million a year.
I think it's over
maybe over 30. Yeah. So, but you know what though? I'd be okay doing it. And the question that we don't know the answer to, right? How will he do as the true number one receiver? Right. I know he's the number one, receiver for San Fran, but they have Debo, they have Christian McCaffrey, they have George Kittle, right? So he's not really the focal point. He's not getting double teamed a lot, right? And so, if he's out there getting double teamed every time with the Patriots, how is he going to respond to that? And then how are the other weapons of the Patriots going to be able to respond to that? So, that's one of those things. And listen, Brandon Ayuk, and, people have said that Ayuk may not want to sign with the Patriots, and that might be true. Maybe Ayuk doesn't want to sign with the Patriots. But, are you going to sit here and tell me that everyone thinks Calvin Ridley wanted to sign with Tennessee? No, Tennessee just gave him the most money, right? And so if Brandon Ayuk has the final say and you can outbid Cleveland, Brandon Ayuk's probably going to choose the Patriots. And honestly, you're going to choose Deshaun Watson. I don't know. Deshaun Watson looks like a bum right now, right? So, if you're Brandon Ayuk, you may want to choose the Patriots anyways.
Just some context here. The highest annual average values for wide receivers right now: Justin Jefferson's at 35, AJ Brown at 32, Amon-Ra St. Brown is at 30 and a little bit extra, and Tyreek Hill is right at 30, and then you got Jalen Waddle at 28
so
and a quarter.
He's going to have to be over 30 then.
You got to beat the Amon-Ra number, I think. You got to be probably at least 31 is my guess, which mean, the Patriots have so much cap space. Yeah, I really don't care about the money on something like this.
Yeah, I agree.
The draft capital, I think, is what I'd be worried about going back to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Anthony, what do you what would you be willing to give up for a trade like this?
Anything, pretty much. If I'm the Patriots, or if I'm Patriots fans, honestly, if I had Brandon Ayuk's address, I would just send him as many photos of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, leaping up in the air and bumping shoulders as I can. I see the vision so clearly of what this could be, and there's no price that I wouldn't be willing to pay within the realm of reasonable possibilities here. Also, just adding on to Pat's point about the young receivers in this game, we've got guys that I'm excited about that, I'm fairly confident will make at least a bit of a name for themselves against the Panthers. And they seem like a very stable floor for this right now with what it could be in years to come. You add an Ayuk onto that. I mean, it's kind of speed running that Josh Allen sort of development pattern here. And that's too exciting to even think about, especially with the defense. I mean, it's just plugging the holes on this team left and right very fast.
Yeah, that would be very ideal, really ideal for the Patriots, And by the way, as San Francisco, and if I'm San Francisco, I would rather deal with the Patriots, because if I'm getting a second round pick back, let's just say you're getting a second round pick this year and a third round. Let's just say it's Kendrick Bourne, a second this year and a third next year. You know what I mean? A 2025 second and a 2026 third, if that's the case, right? I'd rather deal with the Patriots than the Browns, because I know I'm getting a probably mid to high 30s pick with the Patriots. I don't know if I'm getting that with the Browns. I probably am, but the Browns are like a borderline playoff team. The Celtics are not. And so, that's one interesting thing that I see. And again, maybe they don't have a say in it. Maybe it all comes down to what Ayuk wants and who's going to give him the best contract and so on and so forth. But like, if I'm San Fran, I'd probably rather deal with the Patriots.
So I will also say here, the article mentions that Amari Cooper might go to San Francisco if there's a trade with the Browns. That's also, I think if you're Amari Cooper helps you a lot more than Kendrick Bourne if you're trying to win a ring this year and you're San Francisco. So I don't know. This is going to be interesting. I'm willing to give up a lot. I'm not giving up the first next year. Not the way New England's tackle room. How much time did we just spend talking about how bad the tackles are?
No
chance. We're talking about a pick that's going to be in the top 10. You gotta keep it. Use that on whoever the best tackle is at that point. You can get the Brandon Ayuks of the world in the late first or the second or the third, or Puka Nacua where he was taken. Like, you get good receivers all throughout the draft. You don't usually get good tackles all throughout the draft. So if it's a second, a third, and Kendrick Bourne, I'm all in on that. I'm totally behind that. I don't know if that's going to get it done, but
yeah, and that's so we'll see what happens. But that's an interesting thing for me. And by the way, I think, and we'll talk about Judon later, well, not much later because we don't have a ton of time left. But I think if you trade for Ayuk and then sign him to a big deal, then you have to, you don't have to re-sign Judon, but I think it'd be the right move to re-sign Judon in that case. So,
this is everybody on Twitter is talking about this right now. So,
it's nonstop. So
I have a question. How much do y'all think it would impact May when he starts on the season if we were to get Ayuk? Do you think it would move the needle at all?
So that's a good question. That's one thing that we didn't talk about about Thursday night is how Drake May looks. And of course, Mayo hasn't officially said he's going to play or not, but I'm assuming that we're going to play, that he's going to play. I wonder how ready he looks, right? And Ernie Adams was on with Julian Edelman, and he said, play him when he's ready, right? You play him when he's ready. And Elliot Wolf, his dad, obviously Ron Wolf, comes from Green Bay, and Green Bay's philosophy has always been sit the guy until he's ready to play. And they sit Aaron Rodgers for 3 years, and they sat Jordan Love for friggin' 4 years, for God's sakes, right? Doesn't matter, right? Like, you just, that's one interesting part of it to me is who cares? Just sit the guy if he needs to. But again, if you're bringing in Brandon Ayuk and you feel like he can kind of fast track some of that development, I wouldn't hate him playing a little bit earlier if you have the weapons to do it. And so it's a good point about that might accelerate it a bit, but I still don't think you put him in there if you don't think he's ready.
Yeah, I don't think it would move it, but I do think it could move it in terms of accelerating his development behind the scenes by having a receiver he feels really comfortable throwing to. Brandon Ayuk has a great catch radius. Jalen Polk has a great catch radius.
Mm-hmm.
If those are your top two receivers here at some point, then you might feel a lot better about throwing a rookie with accuracy issues out there if the rest of the stuff looks good, because you got two guys who can erase those issues for you. That was something, even one of the training camp videos, there was one where Jalen Polk calls in a catch where the ball's a little bit off from May, and he still catches it anyway. And he built the trust, and that if May can kind of consistently capitalize on those throws because of the receivers, then he's on the field, and then he can do the developing when he's out there. So it's hard to tell. I will say I do think it would happen faster because I think it would accelerate his development. That's my feel. Do you have an opinion?
I think that's where I lie. I'm in no rush to start May. Like Pat said, play him when he's ready, I think is the appropriate mentality. But at the same time, all due respect to Jacoby Brissett and then some, I doubt Ayuk would want to come to New England solely just to see that for the entirety of the season. I mean, May is the exciting piece here. And I do think he would help fast track his development. And like you're saying, Matt, those hands, combine that with Jalen Polk, combine that with Javon Baker. I mean, I think the best way to say this, if I was to power rank the teams to play Madden arcade mode with and just aggressive catch every single play, that would put him in the top 3, I think, because those radiuses, I mean, it's funny. It's in the name, receiver. Sometimes we think about the parts of being a receiver that is not actually catching the ball, and we prioritize it a bit too much. how fast are you? How agile are you? Are you this small dot that we can just move across the field as fast as possible? Sometimes it's good to just have the guys who can catch the ball. I think you can look over to Jacksonville and what happened last season, this collection of off-ball receivers. No one's quite physical enough. No one can haul in those tight window throws that Trevor Lawrence makes. It was a failed experiment. We would be in the opposite of that direction if we were to add Ayuk onto what this receiving core is right now. And I think with May, it would absolutely help his development. And so, yeah, I guess I would lean, he probably plays a bit earlier than he would otherwise.
Yeah.
I like it.
And that also just adds so much juice to this offense. I mean,
It really does.
Well, with the Alex Van Pelt stuff, from what I could tell with the Browns, there's almost like 3 distinct like buckets of how they like to run the offense. And they have like your typical ground game and play action built off of that. And then you have a lot of like 5 wide spread concepts that's not dissimilar from like Bill O'Brien last year. Like I think there's actually in that aspect of the offense, there's going to be a lot of similarity. And then there's a third thing, which is kind of your neutral downs when they pass. We'll do shotgun and pistol and a lot of 3-by-1 sets. So 3 receivers on one side, 1 on the other. And a lot of times the one receiver was either Amari Cooper last year or it was David Njoku, and they'd split out a tight end because you can isolate a specific matchup out of those formations and make life easy for the quarterback reading and give you a potentially an easy win one-on-one when you have a receiver who's that good. Brandon Ayuk is that good. So in that aspect of the offense, you just have a receiver who, all right, we're going to put him out there, and he's going to win. And if he doesn't, or they play zone or whatever, we just have a concept on the other side with guys who we know can win against that. It makes things simpler for the quarterback, for the receivers, for the whole offense. Helps the offensive line because you're getting the ball out faster. You get a deep threat out of it. Like this would change New England's receiving core overnight. And you also have to love the way the pieces fit together because then Ayuk is your X receiver. Jalen Polk and Osborne are probably battling for a starting job opposite that with Demario Douglas in the slot. And those 3 guys will probably rotate a bit just based on what we've heard. And then it's Javon Baker kind of as a super sub who can play any of these roles coming in when needed. And I don't know what that does for Tyquan Thornton. He ends up as a gadget speed guy. That honestly might get Tyquan Thornton pushed off the roster because they have him as a starting X right now, speed guy. And I think because he doesn't play special teams, I think it'd be very hard to make him active on game day if he's not going to be a guy who's going to play a ton for you at the receiver position. So it would change a ton overnight for this team if they make this trade.
Yeah, sure would. All right, we got to do a quick ad read for Prize Picks, and then we'll I want to wrap up talking about this, but I also have just a few more points I'd like to make as well. A little Matthew Judon stuff and some more stuff. So let's get into Prize Picks. So Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with more than 5 million active members. Now, Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Get in the excitement and win up to 100 times your cash with the summer games on Prize Picks. That's right, the summer games. If you're looking for promotions, Prize Picks has got you covered every week, from lowering select players' stats projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. Now, for me, I'm all in on the summer games, and I'm going specifically on basketball. I'm going with Giannis with more than 41 combined points, rebounds, and assists. And I'm doing a 3-way here because I'm doing Franz Wagner, with more than 30 points, rebounds, and assists. And then give me Dennis Schroeder with less than 8 assists. And so, I mean, come on, that's so much fun. So, anyways, download the Prize Picks app today and use the promo code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's the code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, so just quickly here, just kind of to finish up on the Ayuk stuff, I think it's interesting what this team could look like with Brandon Ayuk out there. And I think your points about Taekwon maybe getting moved off the roster, about kind of everything changing overnight. And I think one of those things, and there was a question someone asked in the chat, Old Man Mob asked, would you want a true wide receiver one or a better left tackle or wide receiver? What's more important? And I think my answer to that question, right, is both. Why not? Why not both? Right? And here's why it would be both. Because you're trading for that wide receiver one while not giving up that first round pick next year. You're going to assume you're not going to be great this year, right? Even with Brandon Ayuk to help your offense. And you're going to be able to draft that tackle at the beginning of next year's draft. There's some really good, legit tackles that are coming out next year. You're going to be able to get one of those guys at the top of the draft. And so if you kind of step back and you say, okay, if Drake May is the guy that we think he is, we got our quarterback. We feel like we're in a good spot where Ramondre Stevenson at running back. I like Antonio Gibson a lot as our second running back. Fine. We have a true wide receiver one, I think, in Brandon Ayuk, along with some good depth pieces, Pop Douglas, Polk, Baker, depending on how those guys play. And then we can get our left tackle of the future as well. Defensively, we have, the pieces that we have over there, and I think they have a solid defense. And so now all of a sudden you're starting to look at it and say, wow, in 2025, we have a pretty good roster, right? And so now all of a sudden we go from not a very good team to a team that can start competing, not for a championship necessarily, but competing for a wild card spot and to get in the playoffs. And I think that change could happen really quickly with Brandon Ayuk and a left tackle, right? And a legit left tackle. And of course, that's going to take Drake May developing into a good quarterback.
But if Drake May doesn't develop, everything else here ends up kind of being moot.
Of course,
I think anyway.
Right.
You have to assume that, otherwise, team. Here's a question for both of you. If San Francisco needs a first round pick as part of this, would you do you give up a first, but you get San Francisco's back, basically a pick swap this year? Is that something you'd consider? And I feel like under this, if the Patriots get Ayuk, I don't think they're picking top 10 probably. So I don't know. You're probably looking at moving back 15 to 20 spots in the first round, is my guess. And out of the range for that tackle, but you keep a first. You still doing it?
I think yes. Where did Kingsley Sumaia-Tia go in the draft this past year? It was somewhere in the second round, right?
He was the Chiefs' second rounder, right?
Yeah. That, I think, ideally is what I would be looking for if I was the Patriots, and I would be a lot more comfortable doing that if we had Brandon Ayuk. I think it's really easy to get caught up in the would you rather have a wide receiver one or that perfect left tackle question and get too carried away before remembering the fact that we don't quite know what Drake May is yet. I mean, I was doing that until the two of you stopped to point out, we need to have May develop first and foremost. That's priority number one here. And I think Brandon Ayuk probably would help with that development more than the left tackle would, at least, a first round top 10 left tackle, as opposed to, maybe a more raw prospect, something like that. I think I would still prioritize getting Ayuk in a situation like that, because coming out of college, I mean, one of May's best traits was his confidence and his command at the line of scrimmage, his understanding of pressure, things like that. That confidence is something that I do not want to go away. And I think that Brandon Ayuk would probably be the best way to raise that confidence this year, right now. And that development is the thing that I would have to prioritize the most.
I mean, listen, it's an interesting question. I think I would certainly consider it. You're betting on yourself a little bit, right? I was looking at it just out of curiosity. I was looking at it. Phil Perry and Tom Curran had talked about this. Because it had been floated out, I think last week, something like that could be something, would you do something like that? And I believe, I said, okay, let's say the Patriots are drafting at 3 again. Let's just say they're drafting at 3 again. And let's say that the San Fran's drafting at 29, okay? If you're trading, I'm sorry, no, not 29. I think maybe it was like 32 or something to 31. Doesn't matter. Either way, I think I said 31. By the Rich Hill draft chart, you're giving up pick 29, right? So really the question you're asking is, are you willing to give up a late first round pick for Brandon Ayuk? And I think the big thing for me is that, we have the quarterback, right? I'm not trying to draft a quarterback in the top 10 anymore. I'm not trying to do that anymore, right? If I didn't have the quarterback, and again, we don't know but again, as you said, Matt, if we don't have the quarterback, it doesn't matter. Right? If Drake May isn't the guy, all this is irrelevant. It doesn't make a difference, right? You're betting on the fact that Drake May is going to be the guy. If I feel like I have the guy at quarterback, I'm okay doing that. All right. And then if I have to take my first round pick and combine it with my second round pick and go up and get a tackle it at 15 or 20 or whatever, because I'm at 30, fine. If that's what I have to do. But I feel like getting that legit number one wide receiver. And again, the draft is a crapshoot. You don't know what you're going to get from the draft. I know what I'm getting in Brandon Ayuk, right? I know what I'm getting. And some people may say, well, I don't think he's a number one yet. And that's okay, right? And I can see your hesitancy. If the Patriots have done their scouting and they feel like he's a legit, true number one wide receiver, those guys just simply don't grow on trees. They don't. And I think you have to do everything you can to get him. I'm not giving up a top 10 pick alone to get him. But if you're telling me that I can move back in the draft in that first round, I'm guaranteed a first round pick back. I don't know where it is. And who knows? Maybe San Fran, Brock Purdy doesn't play as well without Brandon Ayuk out there, right? Yeah. And their offense doesn't look quite as good. And now they're drafting in the mid-20s instead of the late 20s. And so those are kind of those questions where you start to look at it and say, well, we don't know what they're going to be. We could be a little bit better. They could be a little bit worse. All of a sudden, we're moving back 10 picks, and we're like, hey, this is perfect, right? And so I would do that pick swap. I'd obviously be worried about it, but I would do that pick swap because I think Ayuk is good enough. And I think that there's a reasonable thought that San Fran might regress a little bit if Ayuk leaves, and you progress a little bit if Ayuk leaves. And now that gap isn't, the Grand Canyon anymore, right? It's a little bit closer.
Yeah. This is where I wish that you could do it like the NBA and do protected picks. Like that would actually, I think, make a ton of sense for this scenario. If the Patriots say, we'll give you our first, but if it's a top 10, top 12, top 15 pick, whatever, it becomes, something else or gets pushed to the next year or however you want to do it.
You almost would say, we're trading you our pick, right, for your pick, but our pick is top 3 protected. Let's just say top 3 protected. And if it is in the top 3, instead of doing the pick swap, you get a second round pick back, right? Like that actually would be fairly similar value, right? Where if you're saying, okay, it's top 5 protected, let's say, well, 6 back to 32 is probably about equal to an early second round pick, right? And so you're getting the same value you thought you'd be getting. Now, it's a little bit different because you can put the value on it all you want, but like the number 8 pick in the draft, moving up from 29 or 30 to number 8 is significant, and it's a better than, whatever moving, getting a mid 30s pick by itself. But the point stands that you could still do it. You know what I mean?
I do think it's funny that our entire outline for the rest of this episode is just out the window. Brandon Ayuk trade news, and there goes. I don't know if we're going to be doing the NFL Top 100 discussion on this anymore.
No.
Well, what I can say on that is that Ayuk was like in the 60s. Deebo Samuel was at 30. That made no sense to me. Ayuk was, I believe, by ESPN Analytics, the number 1 receiver in the league last year, which there is this bias towards catching and how well you do with that, which I think makes sense. I think it's interesting to mention that in the context of Tyreek Hill being the number 1 player, according to his peers in the NFL. But yeah, this shakes up the whole AFC.
Well, it almost feels like a fantasy football thing. Like Tyreek Hill was unstoppable the first few months of the season. Just absolutely incredible the first few months of the season. And then what happened at the end of the year? He got hurt, fell apart, and so it's those type of thing where it's like Patrick Mahomes won the MVP and then won the Super Bowl. Like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, he's the number 1 player in the league. It's pretty obvious. But I guess, like, at a certain point, you're like, all right, whatever, dude. It's like LeBron in the NBA. All right, we can't give him the MVP every year. We'll give it to someone else, And so,
Mark Daniels, by the way, is independently confirming the Patriots do have a framework in place. So,
oh boy, boy.
And who knows? But maybe by the time, if anybody is downloading this podcast later to listen to, by the time you're hearing this, the trade may have already gone through.
Bro, I just can't. What's gonna be so terrible is if like we follow it, we're like paying attention, we're like, okay, this is gonna happen, and then he goes like to somewhere that nobody's thought about, and you're like, what the hell, dude? How did he end up there? And so that would suck. But what are you gonna do?
I will say, as a precautionary measure, just in case that is the case, there was a tweet that I read recently. It really resonated with me, and I think it would probably resonate with most Patriots fans in general, seeing, what our formula was when we won all of the championships we did. It came from Brett Coleman. I'm sure you guys know him. He's big on YouTube. Mm-hmm. He made the point recently. He said, I understand that having an elite receiver is very important, and the top 5 to 6 guys are definitely worth the money. But also, please do remember that the average amount of snaps that teams face true man coverage is like 25%. The vast majority of plays any offense runs are going to be against zone looks, whether it's match zone or spot drop. And truth be told, getting open against those kind of looks has way more to do with football IQ, instinct, and timing with the quarterback than just pure separation ability and physical skills. People like to say all the time that it's a quarterback and receiver league, but really it's a quarterback and offensive line league. Those are the two position groups that truly have major effects on the outcome of every down and distance, regardless of what the defense is calling. So if the Patriots don't go through with getting Brandon Ayuk, or if they do, but they somehow manage to hold on to that first round pick, I think that's a good point to think about, because as of right now, with what the Patriots have, they've got Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. And Jalen Polk, Matt Harmon of Reception Perception, that's my favorite place to go to when it comes to intel on receivers. He has really hammered that Jalen Polk is a zone-beating receiver. To the point of Brett Coleman, that's kind of what you look for in an offense. You look for that consistent guy, that Puka Nacua-esque. I mean, I'm not saying that's what this season will look like for Polk, but that type of player that you can just rely on. You know where they are. And I'm sure all Patriots fans know what I'm talking about. This is the Chris Hogan. This is the Julian Edelman. This is the guys that got us to all of those championships. So if we don't land that superstar top 5 receiver, it's not the biggest deal in the world. And if we do, but we somehow manage to hold on to that line pick, that would be very reassuring as well.
That's a great point.
I will say the work off of that, though, you gave the average amount of time that you're going to face man coverage. The Patriots have faced well above average rate of man coverage because of how bad the receivers are. And this is where somebody like Jalen Polk could be unlocked. If you get a man-beating receiver, defenses play more zone. When I was describing the 3-by-1 sets, if they're going to go into a zone coverage and try to protect against Ayuk doing something on one side of the field, you can do overload concepts on the other side of the field and let Jalen Polk catch, 12-yard dig routes all day long.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, and listen, here's the deal, right? And old man Mob is asking this question, right? Why would Brandon Ayuk want to come to New England, right? And it's a valid question. Okay, it's a valid question. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to take all those preconceived things that we think about, winning, right? Like we talk about winning. We gotta get a championship. I want you to take that from your mind. I want you to crumple it up, and I want you to throw it in the trash. And do you know why I want you to do that? Because he's leaving the San Francisco 49ers. They're the best team in the NFC. There's no one even close to them. They should be in the Super Bowl again.
Yeah,
without a doubt. Right? They're clearly the best team with absolutely the best offense. He's leaving there because he's not getting enough money. And so what do the Patriots have to offer him? Money, obviously, a rookie quarterback who could be a good player, and they just drafted 2 rookie wide receivers, and they have a slot wide receiver that's up and coming. And so now you look at it and say, okay, the Patriots don't have even close to what San Fran had. But I could grow with this team. In the meantime, I'm going to get a ridiculous amount of targets from the Patriots because they don't have anyone else. And yeah, we'll bring these young guys along with us too. But, this is where we can go from here, right? And so I think that that's one of those interesting things where it's like he doesn't care about winning a championship right now because if he did, he would be taking less to stay in San Francisco, right? And he's not doing that. And so he's not worried about winning. And we can say, hey, we just drafted a guy number 3 overall. He's going to be a stud, right? And so that's going to be the guy. And so, and again, he'll go from, as Jack pointed out, he'll go from wide receiver 2, Deebo Samuel's number 30 in the league, you're 60, whatever, right? To he's the number 1 guy in New England with 100 catches and 1,000 yards. And everyone's like, oh my God, Brandon Ayuk's a stud. He's going to be in the top 15 next year, right? And that's what he can do.
Yeah, if they're in the framework agreed to part of this, it's going to come down to who gives him the most money, and then he'll come up with reasons why he went to New England when he's on the plane to Foxborough later in the week. So when he goes and does the press conference, it sounds like it isn't just money.
Exactly.
Now here's a question for you guys. If the Patriots pull this off and they get a huge contract to Brandon Ayuk, how does that impact the Matthew Judon situation and how much money you're giving him? Because that would be another guy getting a big contract from the Patriots front office with Judon getting passed up.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's what it comes down to, right? And I kind of teeter on both sides of this. I want Matthew Judon around. I do. I also understand that with the fact that he has slowed down at the end of every year he's been here, he's ended the last 2 years on the IR, and the first year he was here, he might as well have been in the IR, right? I'm not overpaying him. I'm just not doing it, right? Jack over here on YouTube, I'll just throw him up, and someone had said this before. It's possible Judon's part of the package. Maybe Judon is part of the package. Instead of giving that, you're trading Kendrick Bourne, your second-round pick, and Matthew Judon, right? Maybe that's the deal you're making. I don't know, right?
I would do that in a heartbeat.
And that's the thing, is that I would do that. And it sounds to me like the Patriots have been trying to get a deal done with Matthew Judon, and Judon isn't happy with where they are right now. Now, he came out today, and he said, I'm going to play. I'm here. I'm under contract. I'm going to play. Right? Kudos to him for saying that. He didn't have to say that. I don't believe it, but he said it. Right? And so, but he's getting paid $7.5 million this year. I don't blame him for not wanting to play on that. Right? But at the same time, I'm also not paying him $20 million a year to play here. Right? And just because I brought in Brandon Ayuk doesn't necessarily mean I'm a playoff team. Right? And so, yeah, listen, if Matthew Judon played left tackle, absolutely, I'd be signing him, right? But he doesn't. And so I feel like I'm kind of in the same boat. Yeah, sure, he would be extra money on them, but realistically, they have so much cap space, it doesn't really matter if they pay both Ayuk and Judon. But I'm kind of indifferent as far as, whether they have Ayuk or not. I'm still not wildly overpaying for Matthew Judon. If he'll take $15 million a year, I'd do that. More than 15 or 16, maybe I'd go to 17, but I don't feel great about it.
Yeah, I'm with Pat for the most part there. I mean, I would honestly draw a bit of a comparison to what Kendrick Bourne was for this team over the past couple of years on the offensive end. We're talking about, the two guys who really dictated the culture in the post-Brady years for these Patriots teams. It was the fun, loud guy on offense, Kendrick Bourne, that all the fans loved, and the guy who throws with the fans in the stands before every camp, who's always wearing the red sleeves. I mean, these were my two favorite players on the team pretty much for the past couple of seasons. And as much as it sucks to say, yeah, we should probably part ways with them, sometimes that's just the reality of things in the NFL. Sometimes you lose a couple years trying to work it out with the wrong quarterback, and all of a sudden your edge rusher, who really held it down, at least in the early parts of these seasons, year after year, suddenly he's a bit older now, and the injury stuff is just a bit too much of a concern. You're already saying goodbye to the guy on offense who was what Judon was on defense, and yeah, I would just be prepared to lose him because it's a new era for this team, for better and for worse.
Right. Additionally, I mean, I don't know. I don't really care too much about what the culture's been the last few years. It's not like it's been a stellar culture the last few years, right? And so, and again, I'm not blaming Matthew Judon and Kendrick Bourne for that, but it's not like, well, things weren't great, but the only thing that kept us going was KB and Judon. It's like, well, not really. So that's, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I would love to keep Matthew Judon, but ultimately, if he's going to want some ridiculous contract, I'm just not willing to super overextend for a 31-year-old guy that is just injured all the time and is faded at the end of the year.
Yeah. This is a tough situation, I think. Here's the thing: if nothing gets impacted, I also wouldn't be shocked about a scenario where they just keep Judon this season and make him play on the contract.
Right. Which they certainly could do. Could do. You know, it's funny. I'm reminded of like the John Lackey situation. I don't know if you remember this or not. Anthony, you might be too young for this. John Lackey when he signed a new contract with the Red Sox, he signed a contract and it said if he gets hurt and has to go on the long-term IR, the final year of his contract drops to $500,000. Or it was something stupidly low. He was getting paid a ton of money, and the final year of his contract was dropping to maybe it might have been $5 million. It doesn't matter. It was really low for what he was. And basically, the Red Sox were like, "Nah, that's what it's going to be, no matter what. We're not changing it." And he's like, "Come on, like, we won a World Series together. We're doing this whole thing. Like, what's going on? You're going to just not pay me anything?" I'm like, "No, go pound sand." So he said, "Okay, trade me." So they traded him somewhere, and he said, "You know what? I'll play under that contract. Fine. I don't care. I don't need a new deal." And he played under the contract, but he just was so pissed at the Red Sox for doing what they did that he said, "We need out of here." And so that was one of those interesting things. And Judon could be feeling the same way. Like, look, you gave me extra money last year saying that you were going to pay me next year. And now you're not paying me next year. I understand Bill Belichick's not here anymore. But last time I checked, the same guy signs the contracts. The GM this year is the GM that was here last year, right? And so I can see his frustration. And he might say, "I'll play for the $7.5 million, but I'm not doing it here," right? Yeah. And and I don't know if it's going to get to that point or not, but it could end up at something like that.
I think there's another scenario here too, where Judon's value is a little bit low right now because of the injury. You'll let him go out there and play and trade him at the deadline. You might be able to get a little bit more back for him because if he goes out there, he has 6 sacks in the first 10 weeks of the season or something like that, and you could trade him at the deadline and get something decent back from a contender that's just trying to, add pass rush going into the playoffs to get a situational guy. Like, I think there could absolutely be, that it's a possibility. My head is just totally in the clouds right now thinking about Brendan Ayuk. Though I can't focus on defense at all.
I will totally agree.
Not at all a priority in this, but I was just double checking the Patriots roster right now. Every number that Brendan Ayuk would be eligible to wear is taken up, except for 18, which isn't technically retired, but they didn't give it to anybody after Matthew Slater last year. So I don't know. I'm trying to visualize him in a Patriots uniform. I don't know what jersey number he'd end up wearing here.
And he wears what, 11? Yeah,
11. And he wore 2 and 4 in college. I'm pretty sure he wore 2 at Arizona State, and I think 4 at the place he was before.
I think he'll be able to wear 4. I think he'll be able to wear 4 this year. I'm not too worried.
4, I think, should be open before the regular season. Yes.
Yeah. So, but we'll see. So, hey, look, man, it's a fun thing to talk about on a Monday night. And we'll see what happens. We'll see if it goes anywhere. We got this report. It may be a few days until it happens. It might happen tomorrow morning. I think it was, I don't remember if it was Cad, like one of the Pats beat report, it might have even been Taylor Kyles. One of the Pats beat reporters was like, "I'm ready to get hurt. I'm ready to be hurt." Because I have absolutely no faith that it's actually going to be the Patriots. But my hopes are through the roof right now that it will be the Patriots, but I'm just like, nah, there's no way they're going to actually pull it off. But if they did, it would be pretty awesome. And I'll tell you what, it's one of those interesting things that he gets drafted the year after. Did he get drafted the year after? He got drafted in 2020, yes, after the year after Nikhil.
Was that the year after or 2 years after? I don't remember.
I don't remember. Either way, we would get the correct Arizona State wide receiver. I remember going into that year, I was like, we can't draft Brandon Ayuk simply because we already drafted an Arizona State guy and he sucked. So I can't do it again.
Trust issues. Yeah.
So, yeah. But, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Is this where I don't think we have enough time left to get into any of the other subjects. So I think this is
no. Let's wrap it up here. But Anthony, before we let you go, first of all, I got to tell you, high praise for my dad over here. My dad says, I don't like TikTok, but kid's pretty good. And so, there you go. How about that? So
I appreciate it.
So Anthony, let everyone know where they can see you and hear you and all those things.
Yeah, so I'm on TikTok at ESQ Anthony. I know TikTok has a bit of a stigma, but my videos are not as short as the typical TikTok. I try to make things that are, 5 to 7 minutes long. Think reading a sort of article out loud. You can find my stuff over there. I also am on Twitter at Esquire Anthony 1, and I actually just started up a Substack as well because, as I'm sure we all know, TikTok might not be around for too much longer. So I've got some team preview stuff going on over there, fantasy advice potentially, and maybe even some sort of podcast thing coming. Who knows? That would all be over there, though. The link is accessible via my Twitter and my TikTok. I don't think it comes up on Google right now. Hopefully that gets fixed soon. But yeah, it's probably Esquire Anthony on Substack if you were to Google that.
Love it. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things with TikTok where I don't watch sports videos on TikTok because it's just so frustrating and it's the same thing over and over and over again. And Matt had said to me, he's like, dude, there's this guy on TikTok and he's great and you have to watch it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, or whatever, dude. And he sent me a video and I'm like, oh, this is really good and informative and insightful. I'm like, this is great. Okay, I can do this. And so, no, it's good, and it's not clickbait. It's actual insightful stuff, and so keep up the good work, man. It's it's good. It's the type of content that TikTok needs.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Even though TikTok keeps trying to push me Kurt Benkert videos, 15 of those a day. He keeps trying to show me.
It's rough out there.
So that does it for us. So hopefully Brandon Ayuk is New England Patriot by the end of the week. But don't hold your breath is what I would say.
They're talking about frameworks, so this might be done by the time we wake up.
I'll do my snow day rituals, spoon under the pillow, flush the ice cubes down the toilet.
I love it.
Go to
That's
bed
a good plan. And if we all do
tonight.
that might work. You never know.
Yeah.
So. But all right, well, thanks guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I believe I got to check with John to make sure, but I'm fairly certain that the guys on Press Pass are going to be in the locker room right after the game. So I think Matt and I are going to be live directly after the game Thursday night. I got to check to make sure that's 100%, but I'm pretty certain that they're going to be in the locker room and doing, press and everything like that. And so we will be live directly after the game Thursday night. Giving you an instant reaction to finally the Patriots' first football game in a long time, and so it'll be not really real football, but we're getting there. Yeah, we're getting there. So, all right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate it, and thank you, Anthony, for coming on. And we will talk to you guys on Thursday night.